Welcome to NextGear's Track Series. Today, covering a scorching day at Autobahn South with RevMatch Track Days on June 22nd, 2025. Now this was definitely the hottest track day I have yet attended, with temperatures reaching as high as 93 degrees and the humidity around 70%. All that being true, this was going to be the only day this year I had planned to get the S2000 back to one of my favorite tracks. So I still headed out with hopes of a better time than last year's despite this heat. Now with the day only getting hotter as it went on, I knew the best chance for good times would be earlier in the day, so I pushed hard in my first sessions. Unfortunately, my interior front-facing camera glitched all day, so I don't have any footage from it, and the pedal camera messed up in the second session, so I don't want to be pedal footage from that session. Now the run you're seeing right now is session 1, where after a few laps of warm-up, I was able to get 3 consecutive laps that were all faster than last year's 1:44.6 best lap by a second to a second and a half, despite these hot conditions. Now, this really showed the improvement that I've achieved in the last 5 track days since setting that best time here. Now I was pushing hard, but definitely felt there was another second or two there at least. I also was now carrying more speed into the turns in these faster laps, and due to this I was actually now having to brake in spots that I didn't need to brake before, which was really slowing my momentum down around those corners. So in my second session of the day, I went out with the goal of simply letting off the gas about 50 feet before I was having to brake, to slow down the car a little bit so I wouldn't have to brake, and hopefully I could then carry a bit more speed and momentum into the turn as well. This worked wonderfully, and the car really seemed to respond well, dropping my time a further second and a half, getting me into the low 142s. Now unfortunately, in that session, on my fastest lap, I had to let up down the back straight just before the finish to let a Porsche by, but a time of a low 142 was certainly there. With that low 142 in hand, I could sense a 141 coming, so in the next fast lap that followed, I went for a 141, but ended up spinning when it looks like one of my wheels touched the paint of turn 5. Now I had done this before on previous laps, but it looks like at these new speeds I was now going through these corners on, I pushed it just beyond the limit of adhesion and around I went. Now in session 3, my times had fallen off by several seconds due to both the heat and probably due to the spin still being in the back of my mind from earlier. Now I decided to skip sessions 4 and 5 as I was frankly just too hot and didn't want to risk anything. But a bonus from the track day was that I was finally able to figure out my cooling issues that have been popping up occasionally at track days throughout the years. Today I confirmed that the culprit is definitely the grille that I've used on my front bumper for the last 24 years. Now while it seemed to be fine for daily driving, during the hot track events it tends to restrict airflow a bit too much and allow the temperature of the engine to climb as high as 235. You will notice that during this first session where my grille was on and it was cooler in the day, but my temperature climbs up to that high temperature at times. However, in my later sessions that you're about to see, when it was hotter in the day, and after I remove the grille, it stays much closer to 200 degrees. It looks like I'm going to have to keep it off and deal with the aesthetic of the car that I've always liked the least, that big open front. Maybe I'll go ahead and feel better about it when I add the splitter and aero later in the year. Now my friend Jay, who I met last year at one of the track events, and who has been tracking his S2000 for several years now, gifted me a brake air guide kit at this event that should hopefully keep my rotors cooler during future events until I can work on a ducted brake cooling method. This should hopefully make it so that cracked rotors like I experienced at Road America this year happen less frequently. Speaking of Jay, he was also nice enough to provide a video of his best session roughly 3 years ago, before he made several racing modifications to his S2000, such as aero, brakes, bigger and better tires, racing seats, and more. Now with those modifications, he has lowered his time an additional 4 to 5 seconds, so while I do think there is at least another second or so that I could reduce my time by, my spin shows that I'm really pushing it with my current setup, and that if I'm going to get into those 130s, I'm definitely going to need to start making some of these same changes that he made. So my plan is to finish out the season with my current setup to get my best lap times on all 8 track configurations that are near me, and then look into adding things such as aero this winter to try to get my times down further for next season in an attempt to keep up with the M3 in a car with less than half its power and no traction control. Up next, you will see the best lap of the day for me while having a comparison video up of Jay's 2022 best lap time. Both videos will show the max mile per hour at the end of the straights and the minimum in the corners to help show where the small differences are, but overall it's amazing how similar the two look. Now I'm really looking forward to modding the S2000 over these next few seasons to get my times even lower and hopefully catch up to Jay's level for some fun back and forth on the track. Now after the comparison video will be my 141 lap attempt that ended in a spin for some comic relief. Now the next event is with the S2000 at Gingerman in 2 weeks, where I will first take on the track in the usual direction for the first time on Saturday, and then go back on Sunday to do it in reverse. Thanks for watching everyone, enjoy the fast lap and spin, and we'll see you next time.